Hello and welcome to Southern Summers and Northern Winters. How are you this week, Mark?
I'm good, Anders. It's been another interesting week here out of our house and still roaming around the countryside while our house gets fixed at present, but we're in another town, so it's quite good. We've enjoyed it's sort of like a mini holiday when you're out of your own home, even though you're still going to work and things like that. But I've got the weekend off and we're in this town called Sale. So tomorrow me and Rebecca might go out and check out some of the local pubs or clubs and have a beer if it's a nice day and things like that, because, you know, we can obviously walk there in this town, whereas if we had to come here from our home, one of us would have had to have driven and things like that. So hopefully the sun's out tomorrow. I think it's meant to be warm here because it's still been days over 30 in the last week. It's actually raining today, which is a bit strange, but so if the weather's warm tomorrow, we might go out and sample a beverage in this town that we're staying in and see what it's like.
That's sounds nice. Speaking of nice weather, was it last week there was a typhoon up in Queensland or
apparently there's another one coming. My wife said that there was I'm going to be a bit naive here. I haven't actually watched the news for a while, but apparently there's a second one forming off the coast of Queensland at the moment. But they had a pretty big one that was meant to come into shore around where Brisbane was, but it never actually fully crossed over into the city. But it wiped away so much sand on the beach that there was about a 12-foot drop from where the beach used to be.
Yeah, I saw a picture. Exactly.
Yeah, to where the waves were. So I think I did see some footage this week where they've got a lot of bulldozers and tractors and they're trying to sort of push the sand back down to sort of level it. Well, they can't level it out because it's too much to build back up 12 foot, but just so it goes down on a nice gentle slope so people can actually still get down to the ocean. Because if you've ever been to the Gold Coast, that's one of the major attractions of going to the Gold Coast and going to Queensland is the warm weather and the beaches. So if you can't get there, and especially with Easter holidays actually coming up next month in Australia, that's Gold Coast is a popular destination for holidays, and Easter holidays they would have been fully booked up for families coming up to the coast to go to the beach, go to Movie World, go to Warner Brothers theme parks and all the sort of stuff that's up there on the Gold Coast. And
exactly.
So they're busy trying to make it all back to normal, hopefully in the next few weeks before the rush comes in.
I'm speaking out of complete ignorance. Gold Coast, is that the name of the city, or is it just there must be like a major city?
Yeah, that's just it's a sort of a region that stretches from the edge of the New South Wales border up to below Brisbane. So Surfers Paradise is probably is what they call it, is the main town along the Gold Coast, but there's other ones like Burleigh Heads and places like this, and all these places have been famous over the years as surfing destinations. And when this cyclone was coming in the other week, the surfers that were out the back are surfing in these conditions because the waves were 15, 20 foot, which is unheard of in the coast up there. And even they had ex-world champion surfers from that they were interviewing who'd been out there surfing these conditions, said the best waves they'd ever seen in 50 years, in this part of that part of Queensland. So it's a really popular stretch of sand, sun, surf, pretty much for a lot of people. It's I've never been to Miami, but I've seen pictures of Miami. So if you picture Miami, the Gold Coast is similar. Lots of high rises sitting right along the golden sand there. So you can just walk straight out of your high rise and onto the beach there, anywhere along the Gold Coast. So
but we weren't there during our world tour, and we stayed 3 months in Australia, and so we flew into Brisbane, and then we took the coast up towards Cairns, and so that was the Great Barrier Reef, Bruce Highway. So we never went to the Gold Coast.
I believe it's about an hour below Brisbane. Can you confirm that for me, Rebecca? Is the Gold Coast about an hour below Brisbane? Okay. It doesn't matter. It's somewhere anyway in that area.
Yeah. It's nice and warm, and that's what matters.
That's the main thing. Yeah,
it's not probably not too warm, because if you go too far north, I mean the tropical heat, it gets very intense. So I guess it's more like moderate the more south you get.
Yeah, most definitely. It's not as I guess it's not as humid as far north Queensland and Cairns and places like that. That's
because
sure. I've only ever been to Cairns once, so yeah, I actually haven't done a lot of Queensland. I've been to Gold Coast once, and I've been to Cairns once, and that's
probably
really about
I've got more experience in that area than you. Then
you would have,
yeah,
most definitely. And I went to Cairns 2003, so 20 odd years ago, and I went to the Gold Coast, I think maybe 2017 or something like that. So it's been a long while since I've actually been to Queensland. So
it's a nice area. There are lots of nice camping spots right at the beach often, and it's just really nice. And even in the winter, in the Australian winter, you will have like plus 20 degrees, but not like biting heat that you just can't. I mean, for a European like me, I mean. And I guess you've said it as much as well. You know, around the early 20s is comfortable, temperature-wise.
Definitely.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I guess we're sort of lucky here in Australia in a lot of senses. I mean, it's not sunny and hot all the time, like it gets made out to be. That's for sure. But it's also not really cold. Like we live far south in mainland Australia, and winter. You might get up and there might be mornings where it is 0 and there's frost on the car, but you also get a lot of winter days where it's 15 degrees as well, and there's blue sky for 3 or 4 hours of the day, and you can feel the sun on your back. But it gets cooler at night and cooler in the mornings. But generally I would say where I live, you're probably getting down to maybe 5 overnight, and most summer days are probably 10 degrees, 10 to 15 degrees, so it's not cold by European standards, that's certainly for sure.
Yeah, it is. We're getting we're having our first spring days here. Sun is coming out, temperature is slowly rising, so it's going to be nice. The balcony we've sort of prepared it for spring as well, so
well, it's good. I noticed that. I was speaking to a friend in Freiburg last night or the night before, and he said, the weather's slowly getting warm there. There's some sun scheduled in that part of southern Germany, so it's always sunny over in that part. I think Freiburg's actually the most sunniest city in Germany, I've read. I'm not quite sure if that's correct, but it gets more sunny days than anywhere else in Germany. But I've also been there in winter, and in winter it's awfully foggy all the time. I don't know whether it's because it's in a valley, like it's basically at the base of the Black Forest. So but there's always a lot of fog in there as well in the winter time. So but
there are many places in a mountain region or just close to a mountain region where the climate will act just in mysterious ways, and suddenly many valleys act like sort of like a pot, and they have a microclimate there. So
maybe that's what makes it a good wine growing area too. Who knows?
Certainly, absolutely. There are pros and cons on that.
Well, with everything in there.
Yeah, exactly. Another pro is that we're because of spring is coming. We're going to in just a few weeks. Our local beer garden will open for the first time in 5 years. It's been closed for 5 years since the pandemic, and it has changed owners, and it's being rebuilt, and it's a protected building. So they've spent a couple of years now renovating it according to local legislation and protective standards. But now they are opening, and we're really looking forward to that. So
excellent. You'll have to post some photos on the Southern Summers, Northern Winters Facebook page.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
Your visit to this newly opened, old, refurbished beer garden.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is one of the oldest, in fact, in Munich, and it's also one of the more expensive ones. But if you just bring your own food and sit outside the beer banks and stuff under the trees, getting a pint of beer is there are sort of the prices are throughout Munich more or less similar. So.
What is a liter of beer worth these days?
It's a close.
Munich, roughly?
It would be close to 9-10 euros.
Yeah,
For a liter of beer, what they call a mass. Yeah, a measure of beer.
Okay.
But if you go to the Oktoberfest, it's well above 15 euros.
15, yeah. I was going to say that'd be easily that in Australia if you went. And I think if you go and get like a pint of beer in Australia, it'd cost you probably $15 Australian.
Really?
For half serve. Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
So, yeah, beer is any alcohol is mucho expensive in Australia. We have I call it the sin tax in Australia. So twice a year since the late 80s, they have a CPI price index rise on alcohol and tobacco. So every year it's been slowly increasing in prices for the last 30 years, and to the stage now where it's really nearly killed the pub industry in Australia because it's just too dear to go out and drink. They've actually frozen the excise for 2 years as a part of a pre-election promise because we're going to an election in a few weeks, so they're going to freeze it for 2 years. But I mean, I don't know, it's cost. I know they make a lot of revenue out of it, and the revenue goes to taxes and helps the country, but you got to look at how many businesses it's costing closures, how many employees have lost their jobs and things like this, because it's unattainable for people to go out and have a drink. You go out and have 4 drinks and it's cost you $70-$80. It's crazy in the end. So they've wound that back, or for the next 2 years anyway. But as if you're a cigarette smoker in Australia, we nearly need to take out like a bank loan. Luckily, I don't smoke anymore. I used to smoke, but like a packet of 20 cigarettes, I think in Australia costs you around $40, which is around 30 euros, 25 euros, 27 euros for a packet for one packet of cigarettes. So there's a thriving black market industry in Australia of cigarettes. That's run by bikie gangs and criminal elements. So with one hand they've reined it in, and the other hand it's opened up a criminal marketplace where constantly you'll find that there's tobacco shops in Melbourne getting firebombed and stuff like that. Every week this goes on all around the country because these criminal gangs are fighting to get their illegal under-the-counter tobacco into stores everywhere. So and this is all caused because of the price of cigarettes. But on the other hand, there's very, very, very few people that smoke in Australia anymore because of the price. You don't see anyone, you very rarely see anyone smoking in Australia, to be honest with you. So it has worked along with the plain packaging, but it's
I can compare this to Europeans. Here in Germany, they're sort of, particularly here in Bavaria, they're sort of conservative, and they don't like to be told or regulated here. It's sort of I wouldn't say they are anarchistic, and the Bavarians, but they tend to be, the more the government gets involved, the more reserved they get. So in terms of tobacco and prohibitions and stuff like that, they are more they're slower to adapt here in Bavaria. In my native Denmark, you hardly ever see smokers as well. It's just. It's not quite as expensive as you're mentioning there, but it's getting there. And I would say like 10 euros probably for a packet of cigarettes in Denmark. And here in Munich, 7 or 8 euros for a packet of
I remember one thing that struck me, one of the first few times I went to Munich or I went to Germany, is you'd be walking along a street somewhere or in a neighbourhood and there would be like a vending machine on the end of an apartment building or something selling cigarettes.
So
which I found amazing.
when daddy is walking the dog at night, he can go to the vending machine just around the corner. You know, that's sort of how.
Another thing I always found amazing about Europe, and particularly Germany, is that you could go to a service station and they sold alcohol there. Like in Australia, that wouldn't wash. The government goes, well, why are we going to put alcohol in a place where you're driving a car? Like, you know, that
it makes absolutely no sense. And you know what's even more disturbing is that they also sell these small bottles of vodka and Jaeger and a lot of people, you know, who are really driving. It's their job to be on the road, you know, be it handyman or salesman or whatever. They have alcohol in their car and they consume alcohol in their cars. And if you put that into context with free speed limits on the Autobahn, and I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Yet it's still something. It's just so deeply embedded into the culture here that you're not going to change it.
No. Yeah, to a foreigner, it's just it's very strange as an Australian, because we basically sell liquor nowhere except for, you know, specific liquor shops at a supermarket or something like that. You've got to go. You know, you can't just buy it at a service station or or a shop on the corner or something like that. Like generally, you've got to go to a specified alcohol shop or it's a part of a supermarket chain where they have a bottle shop, as we call it, a bottle shop, or a liquor area attached to the supermarket that you've got to go to, and they're generally the only spots you can get alcohol in Australia. So, but that's another case where micromanaged to the nth degree here. So
but it's an interesting thing because. This is really one of the things where I find Europeans much more relaxed than elsewhere in the world. We have this. We see things with a lot more nuance, particularly in terms of alcohol. Because, also if you go to the US, you can either drink or not drink at all. There's no in between. This is either black or white, either lots or nothing at all. Here in Europe, particularly the French, they drink wine at lunch. I mean, they and the Italians as well. They can have a glass of wine without that being a problem. And here in Germany, you can have a beer and then go home after that one beer. It's not a problem. Whereas if you like to drink a beer in the United States on a Wednesday night, if that happens too often, people will think you have a problem with it, but I mean, it's just not. We see things with a lot more nuance here in terms of alcohol. Sure, there are lots of alcoholic people here, people with problems. That's not what I'm saying. It's just the culture is much more relaxed, which is interesting.
It's a more open society to be able to sit back and actually just have a beer and relax. Like in Australia, you can't drink alcohol in a public area that's not served at a cafe or a bar. So you can't just go down to the park, have a picnic, open up your bag with your picnic lunch, and a bottle of wine or, something like that. You would get fined because you've you've had alcohol in a public place.
You see that all over the city here. People will go, particularly in nice weather, go down to the river with a picnic blanket, some food, and of course you have a bottle of wine or a beer with you to enjoy.
Yeah, no, not in Australia.
And it's not a problem.
That doesn't happen.
It's not a problem. We're going to talk about this in a couple of months because we have Father's Day here in Germany, and Father's Day is usually when Mother's Day. You give the mother in the household flowers and the presents and she's allowed to serve dinner a little later. No, I'm joking. But
you get in trouble for that.
Yeah. But Father's Day, I see this with a great deal of humor because it's really funny and old stereotype-ish. Because Father's Day here, the father gets a free day out of the house, away from the family, which the mother doesn't on Mother's Day. But the fathers then gather around, out in nature with a with like a caddy, like a small wagon they drag with them, and it's filled with beers. So you have a group of fathers, like 5 or 10 fathers, with a few what do you call that? Boxes of beer.
Sounds like a tradition I could get into. I'm coming to Germany to do Father's Day with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the fathers go out with boxes of beer in nature and have fun and play games and just play loud music and have a party.
That sounds great.
So that wouldn't be possible in Australia, because if you're not allowed to consume alcohol, no, outside the serving places, it's just
you'd have to be at someone's house. You'd have to go to a friend's house or something like that, or another father's house, and invite some other fathers to this private residence in order to do something like that, for sure. Most definitely.
It's funny how cultures are different. In Denmark, we don't have that concept as well for Father's Days. It's it's only here in Germany, and it's quite funny. The first time I was invited, I was just like, so we just walk around, have fun, we chat, and obviously nice fellow fathers, but the only thing we really have in common is that we're fathers. So it's just we know each other from social gatherings and stuff in the neighborhood, but still, and then we just walk around playing music and play games. And
I reckon that sounds fantastic, literally.
It's an odd concept.
They need to bring that to Australia, definitely.
An odd concept. Yeah.
No, it's good. I like it. I reckon it sounds a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an idea we should have imported in here.
You would have to revise that whole legislation in terms of alcohol then.
Oh, most definitely. That is for sure. But I can't see that happening either. So, but Australians in general are much like you said about Americans. Like we would have that stigma of having a beer, and a lot of Australians don't just have a drink to enjoy a drink. Like they drink to excess, and I think that's a lot of the reason why there's a lot of these rules where that goes around that, because obviously at stages there's been people in public, who just can't have drink too much, and
who can't control
the government
it.
just keep legislating it, to keep it under control, basically. So, but
that's just I think the more you trying to regulate this, I think the more rigid the whole dynamic gets. Sure, you could do more to regulate stuff here, and children aren't allowed to buy alcohol. Obviously, you can't buy hard liquor until you're 21, and they do exercise control with ID and stuff. So that's okay. But the whole approach is more relaxed, and that makes it all more relaxed. It's just I have no other way of putting it. It's just more relaxed. The culture is more relaxed in terms of and it's really not a problem if you go to the beer garden. When the beer garden opens, we could go any weekday with our food. We can even buy food there, and we can have one drink or maybe even 2 drinks, and we go home, and we're not drunk. We can get up in the morning. We can take care of our obligations. We can go to work. It's not an issue. So it's just to say that the culture is different. Yeah. So this morning I read that they closed down the 5th largest airport in the world because of a fire in a transformer station. Heathrow is closed down for the entire day, which is quite dramatic. I guess the problem is significant when they do that, closing down.
You would think so, because you would think I think there's like 4 terminals or 5 terminals at Heathrow, so maybe this one transformer must affect all operations, because you'd reckon they would just possibly close down the terminal or even the runway where this is affected, but it must affect all incoming, outcoming traffic.
Really, it's unheard of. I can't remember I've heard anything like that in Europe. So this led me to think about how dependent we are on airports and air traffic in general, the global community, because unfortunately, regularly we have strikes in Germany is famous for striking. As soon as the wage every second year or so they renegotiate wages and terms and conditions for workers, which is great. We need to have regulation there. So that's not what I'm opposing, but the striking culture in Germany is quite, I would say, somewhat aggressive.
Striking.
Yeah, striking and somewhat aggressive. Because it regularly so happens that airports are closed for a day or two. Yeah. How is that in Australia? Do you suffer these same consequences?
Not really. I can't remember the last time an airport was closed. I know there's been a lot of Qantas maintenance and baggage striking on and off, but generally when they do it here, they threaten to do it on like Christmas or New Year's or a
where it's most effective
holiday. yeah, where it's most effective, and then Qantas generally come to the table or someone comes to the table and fixes it before this happens. But that's generally their tactic. The airline unions in Australia, it's going to happen at Christmas time, and that's when we're going on strike. And you need to cough up the money and and fix it up, which is fair enough. These businesses don't want to pay their workers enough, but I guess that's a cycle that's all over the place. They want to pay less, we want more. Everything costs more. They want to charge more. So that's generally what happens. But I don't ever remember an airport being closed down. So here in Australia, because of a strike, I mean, it could have happened, but not regularly enough anyway. So, and if it would be just for one airline, possibly. So one of the other airlines would pick up the slack, possibly. So, generally because Australia's only got two airlines, so it would be basically two airlines. And these employees of Qantas or some holding company that look after Qantas would probably look after, catering and maintenance for international carriers possibly as well, because they wouldn't all have staff on the ground in Melbourne if their airline's based in Dubai or, they'd be looking after One World Partners or whatever they call it, things like that. So it could possibly affect them coming in and out as well, but it'd only be mainly catering and stuff like that in Australia, I guess, that would affect international carriers coming in, but so no, not that I remember. I know they had a big strike at the end of last year, and Qantas paid them up. So, but not to that extent. But speaking of like airports closed too, I did read today that Bali Airport was closed again. It closes every couple of years, mainly for there's volcanoes. A couple of volcanoes in Bali that regularly fire some ash up into the atmosphere, which is hazardous for planes if it gets sucked into their engines while they're flying. So, for time being, they close every now and again. But I read that it was only Jetstar, which is an Australian airline, that had stopped flying today. So I don't really know if it's that bad or they're just overly cautious at this stage. Jetstar are notorious for cancelling flights and being late and such. And people whinge all the time, but people still get on there because it's cheap. And, as we all know, low prices are a rule. But Bali's a bit of a unique airport. It handles a lot of traffic, but it's only got one runway. So it's always busy. But in saying that, they were talking the other day, plans are underway to build a second airport in Bali on the north coast, which is an underdeveloped area of Bali. So that would straight away, I guess, bring development to that area of the island if they're going to build a runway. Going to build sort of a floating, going to reclaim some land into the ocean in one of the areas there and build build a second airport, or they're going to start to anyway in the next couple of years. But all things in Indonesia, or these semi-second, third world countries take time. They could possibly be talking about this in 10 years' time. They were talking about 10 years ago. So had a different government in Indonesia come in the last 6 months or so. So new government's got better ideas to develop Bali, I guess, even further, which I'm not quite sure. Development-wise, you can, but I'm not quite sure you get too many more people into Bali. It's always really, really packed. But they need better infrastructure, better roads and trains and things like that, because it's gridlocked all the time. But so a second airport would certainly help that in Bali, would alleviate some of the problems. And because it's up north, it may not be affected by volcano eruptions that can generally happen, because there's a couple of active volcanoes in Bali, and there's one just on the other island on Java, not far from Bali as well, that occasionally goes off as well, because it's a bit of a seismic activity area around Bali. Actually, you can do some really good trips there. We went and did a sunrise on the slopes of a volcano in Bali, so that was interesting. The volcano wasn't active at the time, but at the base of this volcano, it was all black, so it was black lava fields from when it had gone off. So you can go on jeep tours around these black lava fields, and you go a fair way up the side of this volcano to watch the sunrise across another volcano that's just next to it. So so it was a really really cool and interesting experience to do in Bali as well.
I would love to go hiking on more volcanoes. We obviously we went to New Zealand and saw I can't remember the name of it on the Northern Island. The one is also featured in Lord of the Rings as the Mordor Mount Doom. That's and it's huge. I mean, it's hundreds of kilometers when you drive around it. Yeah. So we did that, but the views are breathtaking. I would love to go to Iceland to experience more live volcanic activity. That would be something. Speaking of Iceland, it was about 10 years ago. There was a volcano going off, and it disrupted air traffic throughout Europe for weeks. I mean, it's a serious issue when ashes go into the air.
Happens. Yeah, I think that happened just before we went to Iceland. I think in 2017, 2016.
It's that long ago already. Wow.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. It might have been 2016, 2017, I think it was. So I think it was in January of 2017. We went to Iceland, actually flew there from Munich, and then flew back to Copenhagen when we met.
It was
2017 for sure. So it was a fair while ago.
I would have said 5 years ago, but there you go.
Time flies, doesn't it? So, but very interesting country for seismic activity, Iceland. Like you can go to an area where the two tectonic plates meet, and you can actually see the fault in the ground where the northern and the European plates push up against each other. And there's a lot of volcanoes and hot springs, and obviously the Blue Lagoon's the most famous hot spring in the world that's pops up water through geothermal activity. But it's quite unique because all the hot water that you find in the hotels, well, I'm not quite sure all across the island, but in Reykjavik in that area is geothermal. So it all smells like rotten eggs when you turn the shower on, and people must think, oh man, this water smells, but it's just because
it takes some getting used
to
the
gas. Most definitely.
But it's interesting. I saw. Speaking of tectonic plates, I saw that you can go swim in lakes and rivers where one side is one plate and the other side is another plate. So you literally swim between the tectonic plates, and the water the water is crystal clear because it's melted glaciers. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
We went to a part where there was just a little bridge that was over the fault line, so you could walk from one side. I'm in Asia now. Literally, I'm in Europe now, and literally now I'm on North America. If you if you want to be technical about it. So
exactly.
Iceland's quite interesting. I'd like to go back there one day for sure.
Yeah, it's quite expensive as well, but
it was back then too. So I'm guessing it still is now.
Yeah, no, it's not going down.
Actually, it's the only country in the world I've been to where I never had a beer because the beer was so dear. I was there for 5 days and I did not have a beer there because I reckon it was about $20 Australian or more for a beer back then, and that was 10 years ago, which is not so bad now because beer's nearly that price in Australia. But back then it was fairly expensive. By memory, I think we brought a couple of bottles in duty-free stuff to drink in the at our hotel on the way back. But definitely didn't have a beer in Iceland at all. Had a couple on the plane on the way in because they were free and on the way out, but didn't buy one in the street there in Reykjavik because it was just too expensive in the end.
That's crazy. In Greenland, alcohol is extremely expensive as well. They don't have an official sales tax in Greenland, but the prices are high in spite of that because of freight or transportation into the country. They don't the only thing they can sell of their own goods are like fish and seafood. Everything else has to be imported. So the import of commodities and goods, it's just so expensive. So in spite of having no sales tax, prices are high anyway. And the price
is interesting. Islands like that you see all over the world that are really remote, and what the prices are on them and things like that. There's one off the coast of Africa somewhere that I've watched a video on a few times, and it only gets one flight every 2 weeks from South Africa, or one freighter that goes past it once a month, and and things like that, and drops off supplies, and has one supermarket in there, and when it runs out, that's it. You've run out until the next delivery. It must be pretty surreal to live in a place. Can you imagine? Like that.
I live in an area of the world where I can literally order something, in the morning, and then late afternoon it arrives at my doorstep. It's just within 6 to 8 hours I can have stuff delivered here. And even when we're talking drinks. Be it alcoholic drinks or non-alcoholic drinks, we have a beverage delivery here in the area. So literally within 120 minutes, I can have stuff delivered. So meaning, should you arrive unexpected, Mark, you and the family, and I have no beers in the house, I will literally just go online and say, let's just go for a walk for a couple of hours. When we get back, the beers have arrived.
I'll make sure I ring you an hour before we get there.
Exactly. So imagine living on an island somewhere where you just really have to plan everything meticulously. That's just. I
think it'd do a lot of people good to live in a situation like that for a while. Just to get back to. Not having everything so served up, or at the tip of your fingers, to have to actually plan and do some stuff and be a bit more self-sufficient in the way you live and cook and eat and so. But we would certainly consume less, which would be healthy. And you'd certainly eat more of your leftovers and stuff like that, I reckon.
Absolutely.
You'd make meals that, you wouldn't be just like, I'll just put it in the fridge, and then 2 days later you're like, I cooked that a couple of days ago. Chuck it out now.
Yeah, that's true. That's really.
I reckon
we should encourage more leftover eating. There's an abundance of food. We could solve the food crisis by just eating what we already have instead of just throwing stuff away.
I certainly agree with you there. So what else has been happening since last time I spoke? So we're going back to. Yeah. Sorry, you keep going.
I was going to ask you, how's the travel planning going?
Oh, that's what I was just getting to.
Yeah.
So we're going back to Bali in October for 10 days. Mainly a lot of the reason we're going back to Bali is because we have a Bali website and we have a Bali Facebook group actually that's got over 10,000 people in this Bali Facebook group that we run. So
shout out to those people.
If I don't, so if I don't go to Bali or to Sanua specifically, because this group and the website we have is about this specific area in Bali, and really this area that we write about is probably maybe 2 kilometres or 3 kilometres long and about 2 kilometres wide. This area of Sanua is where most people stay in this little area. So everything
it's rather compact.
It's compacted. So there's a lot of 5-star hotels on the beach. There's a lot of restaurants, things like that in this area that all come off this one street. It's actually one of the few areas in Bali where the road doesn't go actually along the beach. So you have to actually walk up a street to get to the beach, but there's a big long beach path and there's a lot of hotels and bars and restaurants along this path on the beach, so which makes it quite a nice and popular area. The beach is shallow, sandy, no waves, so a lot of families and older people go there. There's no nightclubs or anything like you'd find on the other side of the island in Kuta and areas like that. You'll find a lot of live music playing and things like that at night. So much more tamer atmosphere, very popular with older Europeans as well. Lots of Germans and stuff there with their, tanned up, wrinkly skin that you often see because they love the sun. So this area, so we're heading back there in October for 10 days because I need to get some new content going, and there's a lot of things have been happening up in this area since we were last there. Biggest shopping centre in Asia, in Bali opened there. We were actually there the day it opened, but it was only a soft opening. Not everything was actually open this day. We were there. So this was in June last year. So by the time we go back, it'll have been like 15 months since we've been there. And since then, they've changed. There's a big area along the beachfront that had a lot of restaurants that has been closed down. They've ripped them down because they're going to build a big resort there, which is a real shame. But, you can't stop progress. And apparently the land is owned by some politician whose family who bought it, 30 or 40 years ago. So, and
they want to profit from it, yeah.
Yeah, they want to profit from it. So no doubt they'll build a stinking big beach club that's probably really out of place in Sanua, but that's generally seemingly what'll happen to it, which to try and drag more tourists into it. And so there's a lot happens there in Bali. A lot changes all the time, and it's really hard to keep track of it unless you're going there all the time. So to keep up to date keep your website and your information up to date and be able to help your members of the group, because I'm sort of getting to a stage where I'm going to try and maybe start making some money off this group and try and sell some advertising to local businesses and things like this to advertise on the page and maybe make some digital products that I can possibly sell on there as just a way to diversify some of the income that we want to make online, obviously to travel more. So, but I obviously need to go there every year at least to have a look and see. Twice a year every 6 months would be better. But
to keep the content current
of what's going on.
Yeah. Of course.
The hotels don't change, but a lot. But restaurants change, and coffee shops that are opened, and prices, and things that are getting built all the time there, and more amenities and things like that. So you really need to stay on top of that. And we do like Bali, but I've been to Bali. We've been to Bali a lot of times now. This will probably be the 8th time we've been to Bali, in the space of the last, I don't know, 5 years. So we've been there a lot, but I if I want to try and continue to try and make some money online through some of the different websites or groups and things that we do, I need to stay up to date. So we're going back to Bali.
Of course.
in October for 10 days. But I need to go somewhere in January too. So I'm a bit lost. I've been looking at a lot of places, but the problem with January is it's always really dear because, especially out of Australia, because it's summer holidays for schools. So the flights are always really, really dear. So I've looked at everywhere from blooming Japan to Sri Lanka, so I'm not quite sure where we'll end up yet. I just keep monitoring prices and looking at different places, Taiwan, maybe. I don't know. Maybe the Philippines, even though we're going to the Philippines, but I really want to go to some of the islands in the Philippines, like Boracay with the beautiful white sand and blue waters and whale sharks and all this sort of stuff that goes on in the Philippines. So, but I'm not quite sure. Every day I just keep checking prices for flights, and once a flight price I like hits me, I'll just book it and away we'll go. So
there's always this excitement about researching for a new destination and
I love it.
Preparing your travels. This is what gets us going, isn't it? It's the excitement.
Most definitely.
As soon as you have, we like to put our itinerary and print out of the tickets and put it on the fridge. So when you go to the fridge every day, you're reminded that this is coming up. And I
have a countdowner on my phone and things like. When we actually went on our 12-month trip, for 12 months, I had 2 whiteboards hanging up in the kitchen that I would change the departure date on because we were sort of a bit fluid at that stage, and I had a bit that had how much money we had in the bank and how much money we needed to have in the bank to go, and all these in business you'd say KPIs that we needed to hit in order to to be making sure we were going to leave at this stage.
Exactly.
So it's always good to have that sort of reminder in front of you and something to look forward to. And I love planning travel nearly as much as traveling. Actually, sometimes
I was going to say that this is just as exciting as the traveling itself.
It is because the possibilities are probably actually more endless when you're planning than they are when you're actually there. Sometimes, because you can be restrained by money, weather, time. But when you're planning something, when you're looking at a destination, until you actually sit down and nut it out and go, well, okay, I can go to this and I can't go to this. Anything's possible. So it's very liberating.
It is
in one way.
It really is. I mean, it can be frustrating at times as well. We just got our Airbnb booking in Prague cancelled. We are planning to go to Prague in the fall, and we had an Airbnb booking, and it just got cancelled for no reason. So we're going to look into that as well. But it's mostly satisfying to plan.
And you've never been to Prague, have you?
I have been to Prague a couple of times. In fact, with school.
I remember Alex saying she hadn't been to Prague. Maybe
Alex hasn't. My wife hasn't been to Prague. That's true.
Yeah,
I've been there.
I remember her telling us that. Yeah, I remember her telling that when I remember having this conversation last time we were in Germany with you. Yeah. She said, one day we might just get on a bus and go to Prague. And I said,
we could actually do that.
You should.
We could. And that is actually the plan. The plan is to go on a bus. We have something called Flixbus. I don't know if it's in Australia as well. But
I know it.
And we can go to Prague. It's 5.5 hours from Munich.
Yeah.
By bus, and it's probably 25-30 euros per person.
I'll beat that.
So it's really cheap. So we've booked that. So we are going. The problem right now is just the accommodation.
Finding where to stay.
Yeah, and we had a flat booked, which was quite nice. But they cancelled for no reason. I don't know.
I stayed on a riverboat last time I was in Prague. That was interesting. On a houseboat, probably one of the more interesting destination I've ever actually stayed in. So, but I like Prague. Prague's a nice city.
Prague is full of history.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's a very, very picturesque city. I think I've been there maybe 3 times. Yeah, 3 times. I think I've been to Prague over the years, and quite enjoyed every time I've been there. Similar to Germany in the fact they like beer and they like lots of meat, on their plate when they're eating and things like that. So
you can get that in Prague.
Retrospect, that's quite good. But we went. When was I in Prague? 2023. I was in Prague.
Yeah, I think it was the last time you were in Europe. I think,
maybe 4 days. Yeah. And we did a couple of day trips out of Prague. Spent a couple of days in Prague. So it was all really nice because it was a nice time of year. We were in there in May, so the weather wasn't hot, but it wasn't cold. But I have been to Prague in the middle of winter when it snowed, and that was also very, very beautiful and picturesque in the snow on Charles Bridge and things like that. So
the Charles Bridge, has been used for many backdrops for films.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And just over it was used in a In Excess clip, a very famous In Excess film clip for Never Tear Us Apart, was filmed on the bank just over from it, I think. And but yeah, I've definitely enjoyed Prague. But every time I've been there, it's been busier and busier and busier. So but that's life.
The first time I was there, it was literally while the Berlin Wall was still standing, and it was still Europe was still divided. So that was quite interesting. It was really like going back in time to just after Second World War. It was literally they had old cars and primitive cars. They had these Trabant and Skodas, and this is old school, old Europe type of cars. But if you're into that, you will know what I mean. But it's really it was really a different time, and it was fascinating to see. And then just literally just weeks after we got home, it was with my school back then. We were on a school trip, and literally as we came back, the Berlin Wall, I think 2 weeks later, the Berlin Wall fell and everything changed. So we really got the very last glimpse of that. And it was history in the making. You could sort of already, because we were traveling through East Germany on the way, and we could sort of feel the uproar coming, the revolution, the government loosening their grip. So that was really fascinating, really, really fascinating. But yeah, we're going back.
And the Czech Republic sort of aided in that, didn't they? Because they opened the border, which allowed the East Germans to flow into Czech Republic and then into West Germany, didn't they? I think was one of the ways that it all opened up. I watched a few documentaries on it. It's very interesting. I love history, so
yeah, I know it's
but so when are you heading back to Prague? Sorry.
Yeah, it's in the fall, in late October. Yep. Yeah. So
excellent.
So we're.
Well, that should be nice.
But before that, we have the Tuscany trip in early June as well. So we are going a couple of places in Denmark over the summer. So it's but it's mostly we're not really planning on flying anywhere. Just Europe, continental.
I wish I didn't have to fly anyway.
Yeah, you guys down there, there are different circumstances. Let's put it like that. Yeah, no. If you want to see the world, which you should, you have to fly when you live in Australia. So that's how just how it is, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of flying,
I like it, but hey.
Speaking of flying, favorite airports. I don't know. What's your favorite airport of all?
Favorite airports. I think you'd go a long way not to say Singapore. For most people, just because of the sheer size of it and things to do there. There's actually, you can go to the roof in Singapore and there's a swimming pool there and you can go for a swim if you like. You can take your...
it's like a public pool?
Bathers.
You don't have to be
like a public...
member?
You have to pay to get in, but it's not much. From memory, it was maybe $5 Australian, or something like that.
Okay, that's fair.
It's a part of a health club. So it's actually a good way to do it if you're flying long distance. Because when we had the kids, we would... nearly all the flights back then went through Singapore because the Middle Eastern carriers weren't as dominant as they are now. So we would fly to Singapore, and a lot of times you'd have a fair stopover. I mean, I remember flying with Finnair a couple of times, and you'd have 7 hours in Singapore Airport. So we would go and have a swim, and then that gave you access to the showers in the health club room. So you could have a shower halfway. Cool. We could put the kids in pajamas if we were on a late night flight and just walk to our boarding gate and jump on and take off. So for that reason, I really enjoy Singapore, but it's so big these days. It's like a shopping centre. In reality, there's that many shops there, and it's that long that it's crazy to get around there. So, but it's a nice airport to go through because you'll never have. There's a butterfly garden in there, so it's definitely a really good airport to go through. It depends whether sometimes big airports are really good. I think if you've got a long stopover, because you need a lot to do, whereas other times just small compact airports are better. I think sometimes if you're departing, I remember being to small airports even such as
But as you say, it really
split in
depends on
Croatia.
how much time you have to because I've been stranded in small remote airports with nothing to eat and nothing to do for hours, and that's really that's really I don't know what it is because some small airports, they have late arrivals, early departures, and still the shops and restaurants are not open. They open like
that's it, and they have very much nothing in the middle of the day sometimes. But you still can't, you still can't find anything opened. It's I'm trying to think where we had this. Where we had that, well, this happened to us not long ago, so I don't know whether.
What's the logic in that? I mean, if you have like a whole airplane full of passengers arriving or have to departure early, and then the restaurants are just closed. Just like as a demonstration, you can literally just fuck off. We don't care.
I know. It's like that's the main part of your business, mate. Just open in the morning and night and close during the day if you want to when there's no one around. Like,
exactly right. Because during the day you often have business people traveling, and they have no time to just sit down and and in general, like you said, the big airport terminals being like shopping malls, they lure people into these shopping streets, and and you could buy overpriced designer stuff and clothes and overpriced food, particularly.
You know what I always find interesting? Like, okay, so you've gone through passport control, and and as soon as you go through passport control, generally you run into a duty-free store, and that's pretty much anywhere. But then you get past the duty-free store, and there's other stores, and there's always a suitcase shop. Like, who's buying a suitcase after they've already checked their luggage? Like, who? Like, why? Like, how does that happen? How do you have your luggage checked? You're in international departures. You can't go out. And there's a suitcase store. Like, who buys a suitcase once they've already checked their luggage? Like,
but I guess
I never understand it. Like,
sort of like a for showroom purposes, they just want to have a presence.
Well, they must, because I mean, I don't know. Like, maybe you could buy a backpack, like, because you might need a backpack. You might go, okay, I could probably do some more. But I've never seen anyone walk out of there with a large American Tourister suitcase or, anything like that and go, okay, well, because how can you put it on the plane anyway?
Yeah,
a large
exactly.
One? Because you can only put a carry-on. You've already gone through. So
it's the same thing here
with a large Samsonite suitcase.
I agree. It's the same thing in particularly here in Munich. You have a lot of BMWs parked around the terminals. I guess they don't sell BMWs there, but it's just to have a presence and be in the top of mind of, Munich is the city of BMW. So I guess that's how a suitcase company would do the same. We could ask Samsonite.
Because there is every airport you go to. There's certainly it's like a WH Smith. There's one of them at every airport you go to. Sandwiches and drinks and cokes. All around the world. But there's always a suitcase store.
A suitcase store.
And for years, it's always amused me. I've never seen anyone walk out there with a suitcase in all the years I've been through airports. So, but
Copenhagen Airport,
you can understand selling headphones and things like that because people can take them on the plane and use
all
them.
These neck pillows and all of these.
Things like that.
You always forget. Copenhagen Airport has been many times been awarded one of the best airports in the world. I don't get why, because it's for the past 25 years they have expanded. It's been like a construction site. As long as I can remember. And yet it's still regularly, regarded as one of the best airports in the world. I don't get it. I don't know what it is.
Sus about that, because not Copenhagen, but Melbourne often gets voted one of the best airports in Asia. And I laugh every time I see it because I reckon Melbourne's a shithole. There's not much in it. It's an old airport that was built in the 60s. Like, they've really done nothing to it. Doesn't even have a train line to it. Like, international departures might have 10, 15 shops in it, like there's really nothing in it for an airport that receives, I don't know, 15, 20 million passengers a year. Like, it's it's pretty average on all levels, I think. They're planning to do, I don't know, $500 million worth of renovations in the next couple of years, which would be nice for it, I hope. But yeah, Melbourne frustrates me nearly as much as anywhere I ever go, because the luggage takes an hour to come out all the time, and it's just, I hate it.
Yeah,
I'll just leave it at that. I hate Melbourne Airport.
That must be one of your things to practice when you and Beck will, in the future, just travel, you and her alone. You should try to only travel with carry-on.
Yeah, I agree.
The older you get, the easier it gets. But but you always have, for you as a blogger and vlogger, you would always have like technical stuff.
I've always got a backpack, full of bloody drone and computer and cameras and things like that.
It's a bit difficult.
Yeah, so maybe we might just take one big suitcase between us, check that, and and things like that. But I would love to. I aspire to be that person that walks off the plane with their little suitcase and walks straight out the door. Doesn't have to wait for the carousel to start, doesn't have to look up at the sign and go, okay, which one of these carousels is my luggage coming off on, It
was funny.
I have to line up and fight everyone else who's standing around it to drag my suitcase off there.
I did exactly that. I did exactly that about 2 months ago. I was on a 2-day business trip to Copenhagen, and it was literally like just carry on. And I had, I guess it took me like 8 minutes from I walked off the plane until I was at the parking lot outside.
That's my dream. That's my dream.
So
because we live so far away too, the whole thing of going to the airport, we have to go to airport parking, then we have to, get a shuttle to the airport, and all this sort of stuff like this as well. Like there's no just catching a train right to the door, because Melbourne doesn't have a train that goes to the airport, of course. They do have a bus, but, it doesn't seem the same. It's not quite as efficient. So there's a whole process when you go to Melbourne Airport, and especially when you don't live in Melbourne. You can't just get someone to drop you off when you live 3 hours away. So we've got to go to airport parking, check the car in, get on the shuttle bus, wait for that to go to the airport, get off, get a trolley to put suitcases on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And exactly the same when you get back. You got to wait for them to come off, got to ring the company that you're parking with, wait for them to come and bring the shuttle back around so they can take you back to their car park,
Yeah.
Yes.
Airports.
That's life.
Yeah,
that's life.
Just life. Mark, it has been absolutely fantastic talking to you. It's been a couple of weeks since because I was down with a cold and all of that. But yeah, we're back. We're back, people.
We are.
Please do subscribe and tell others about this podcast. Do send us a note. We have a Facebook website, a Facebook page. Is it called?
We have a website as well. Yep.
A website as well. Yeah. You can see transcriptions.
A YouTube channel. An Instagram channel. Yeah.
You can interact with us any way you want. We would be happy to get a hello from you. Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
So thank you, Mark.
But nevertheless, it's always fun, isn't it?
It is. Just talking about travel and travel-related stuff is always
It is. It's really good.
So you have a good week. Today's Friday. You have a good weekend, Mark. And I guess we'll talk next week then.
Yeah. Okay. We can do next Monday again, maybe, or Friday. We'll see what goes on.
Let's just chat. Let's just
we'll work it out, and we'll be back next week either way, guys. But we've got plenty of previous episodes you can listen to when we're not on every week. That's for sure. So I think this was episode 16 we're recording.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of piling up. There's a bit of a back catalogue diving into there.
Starting to get a good list of them happening. Anyway, you say hello to your family, Anders.
I will,
and we will chat next week.
Okay. No worries, cheers. Mate.
Bye. See ya. Bye.